Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started. Jey Uso was taken aback when he and his brother Jimmy Uso spotted Sami Zayn secretly interacting with Solo Sikoa on WWE Raw. They had an extensive conversation about the bloodline backstage, so this could potentially be seen as a betrayal by the Canadian star. Sami Zayn was a member of the original bloodline when Roman Reigns ran it, but he was eventually kicked out of the group after turning on the OTC. He and the Yeet Master got on good terms after the latter turned babyface. On this week's WWE Raw, Sami Zayn spoke to Jey backstage about his sudden reunion with his twin brother. He also wanted to know whether the latter would go to SmackDown to talk with Roman Reigns. Jey Uso mentioned that Solo Sikoa was worse than the OTC, but Zayn argued that the bloodline leader wasn't the one who manipulated him for years and made him jump through hoops to prove his worth. Sami clarified that he wasn't on Solo Sikoa's side. However, something unexpected happened during the show. Jimmy Uso was backstage looking for Sami Zayn so he could speak with him, but he caught the latter speaking to Sikoa in the parking lot. Jey Uso also came in and saw it, and he looked disappointed. Jimmy then told his brother that family was all they had. It's unclear what Sami and Solo were talking about, but it doesn't look good for Zayn. The WWE Universe was abuzz with excitement as Monday Night Raw opened with thunderous cheers and roars from the crowd. Jey Uso, recently moved to Raw to distance himself from the bloodline and start afresh, walked confidently into the ring. He'd become a fan favorite since his emotional departure from his family's drama on SmackDown, and fans adored his journey as a lone warrior, trying to define his legacy outside of his family's shadow. As Jey grabbed the mic, the crowd erupted, eager to hear from their champion. "Y'all know why I left SmackDown, right?" he asked, his voice filled with both defiance and sadness. "I left the bloodline because I was done with all the backstabbing and manipulation. I was done with all the pain Roman and Solo put me through." The audience roared in agreement. It was clear Jey's intentions were to put his bloodline history behind him. But something was brewing backstage, something that would shake Jey's resolve. As Jey began to address his future on Raw, his promo was interrupted by a sudden entrance theme echoing through the arena. The fans fell silent as they tried to recognize the familiar beat. Out walked none other than Jey's close friend from NXT, Apollo Crews. The two had shared a bond over the years, especially when Jey had sought solace in friends outside of his family's reach. Seeing Apollo here brought a smile to Jey's face as he eagerly waited to welcome his friend to Raw. But Apollo wasn't alone. To Jey's horror, walking alongside Apollo was none other than Solo Sikoa, his younger brother and the enforcer of the bloodline. Solo's menacing stare was as icy as ever, and his presence alone sent a ripple of tension through the crowd. Jey's heart sank, his face filled with shock and confusion. Why was his close friend Apollo standing beside the very man he had run away from, the brother who had backed Roman Reigns and punishing him time and time again? Apollo grabbed a microphone as he stood on the entrance ramp next to Solo. The crowd booed loudly, sensing the betrayal in the air. "Jey, man, I know this must be shocking," Apollo started, a hint of remorse in his tone, though his eyes betrayed something darker. "But you know the way things go in WWE. We make alliances that help us rise to the top. I had to make a choice. Solo, he's got the kind of power that could really make a difference in my career." "Man, what are you doing with him?" Jey shouted into the mic, voice breaking with both anger and hurt. "You know what he and Roman put me through. We've talked about this, Apollo. You know what they did to me, and you're just going to stand there with him like it doesn't mean anything?" Apollo smirked, his eyes narrowing as he spoke with an edge Jey had never seen before. "I get it, Jey. You're hurt. But this is business. Solo's got connections. And with him by my side, I've got a path to the top of Raw. This isn't personal, it's survival." Solo remained stoic, not even flinching as he stood next to Apollo, staring daggers at his brother in the ring. It was as if he were daring Jey to make a move, silently taunting him with his unwavering loyalty to Roman and the bloodline. The tension in the arena was palpable. Jey's eyes darted from Apollo to Solo, trying to make sense of the betrayal, his heart racing. So that's it, huh? You're just going to stand with him, against me? Jey's voice shook, the pain in his words cutting through the arena. I thought we were brothers, man. I thought you had my back. Apollo's expression hardened. Brothers? Brothers look out for each other, Jey. But you? You abandoned your family. If you can't stay loyal to them, how can I trust you to have my back? The words hit Jey like a punch to the gut. It was the same narrative Roman had pushed, the idea that Jey was a traitor, that he wasn't worthy of loyalty because he had chosen to leave the bloodline. Apollo had bought into the rhetoric, taking sides with the very people who'd manipulated and betrayed Jey. Jey clenched his fists, trying to contain the anger that surged within him. He stared down at Solo, who now took a step forward, his expression as unreadable as ever. The crowd started to chant, "Fight! Fight! Fight!" sensing the inevitable showdown. Apollo looked over at Solo and nodded. In an instant, Solo slid into the ring, his presence like a storm cloud overshadowing everything. Jey squared up, preparing for whatever was about to come, his muscles tense and ready to defend himself. Solo didn't waste time. He lunged at Jey, throwing a vicious punch that Jey barely dodged. The two brothers clashed in the middle of the ring, fists flying, as the crowd went wild. Apollo watched from the sidelines, his expression one of cold satisfaction. This was exactly what he wanted, Jey, isolated, feeling the sting of betrayal from not just his family, but his closest friend. Jey managed to counter one of Solo's attacks, slamming him with a superkick that sent Solo stumbling back. But the brief moment of triumph was cut short as Apollo rushed into the ring, blindsiding Jey with a brutal clothesline. The crowd erupted into a mix of boos and gasps as Jey fell to the mat, clutching his chest in pain. Apollo and Solo now stood over Jey, a united front against the man who had once considered them family. Apollo sneered, looking down at his fallen friend. You wanted to stand alone, Jey? Well, here you are, all alone. Solo didn't need words. He hoisted Jey up and delivered a devastating Samoan spike, leaving his brother motionless on the mat. The crowd booed louder, their hearts breaking for Jey, who had been betrayed by both blood and bond. As Apollo and Solo made their way up the ramp, Jey lay in the ring, broken and defeated. But even in his pain, a spark ignited in his eyes. This was a new low, but it was also fuel. He now had something to fight for, a mission to prove that he didn't need anyone's validation, not his family's and certainly not his so-called friends. The camera zoomed in on Jey's face as he struggled to sit up, determination burning in his eyes. He had been betrayed.